I don't want to hear another white person say the word illegal for the rest of my goddamn life. We are living on stolen land. Our ancestors forcibly and violently seized this land from the indigenous peoples who were living here for generations before we ever showed up. We do not get to call them illegal. We don't own the fucking planet. Nobody does. We are evolved monkeys with opposable thumbs who use them to write little monkey scribbles on a slice of tree, and we call it a birth certificate with our little monkey sounds. All of it is made up. None of it is real, and it doesn't fucking matter. And it's certainly not a valid reason to rip a terrified, screaming child away from his weeping mother. And I am tired of being made to feel like I'm crazy for being angry about this. Capitalism is just narcissism as an economic system. Imperialism is just narcissism as a foreign policy. If the lion can't claim the safari for himself and call the elephant illegal, then neither the fuck can we.
Looks like they are calling out themselves. You know what she says makes a lot of sense, because how does a man like DJT wake up and chase away illegals out of the United States when he himself is European? Now, because the reality is, I love it when they start realizing that actually they are also on stolen land. Yeah, they stole it. Yeah, that's the reality. They stole it. Matter of fact, they know they stole it. They know they stole it. Now, if we can use an example of Elon. He's a man who came to the United States to study, acquired papers, which now the Trump administration is even saying they want to know how he got his papers. Because he was supposed to be a student. Before you know it, he has status. If a person like Elon Musk came to America as an immigrant, as a student, right, and now has the rights to stand in front of Americans that were born in America and tell them, we're going to be sending y'all to El Salvador and Honduras, it just keeps me wondering, where do they get the audacity? And meanwhile, we are on that case of where do they get the audacity, even if them themselves, they know they are on stolen land or land that's not theirs, they form people there. I found this video of Amanda Seales really wondering, where do they get the nerve?
How did they become so good at this? In your studies, how did white people become so good at the strategy of oppression on many climates? It's not even like, well, we was good at this in Africa, but we don't know how to do it in Mexico. The consistency and the efficacy of their oppressive manners is so prevalent that I find myself ever so often being like, this got to be supernatural. Are they the aliens? Because they're the only life on Earth that doesn't, that the sun doesn't help. Is it cultural?
Some historians talk about, the Dark Ages in Europe and how there was just so much war. When there's a tremendous amount of war anywhere in the world, what's going to happen is those people are going to develop better technologies to harm each other or to defend themselves. And ironically, that's why when we see all these movies about pre-modern Europe, it's always about war.
It really is always about war. You just cracked a code.
Have you ever noticed how history keeps calling certain people monsters? A couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to take a class that was being taught by a visiting professor called The History of Monsters. I was intrigued by the concept, and I was thinking it was going to be all zombies and vampires and how those lores happen. Imagine my surprise when one of the first topics we start talking about is the dehumanization of indigenous cultures, which included a map with a little inset drawing of a man who was grilling some limbs over a fire. Colonizers didn't just bring ships and guns. They brought back stories. The goal was to paint the indigenous people as cannibals, savages, beasts, anything to make them look bad. Why? Because if people you're stealing the land from aren't fully human to you, then you don't feel bad about the stealing. If you take the Caribbean as an example, and one of my least favorite historical figures, Christopher Columbus, he and his crew claimed that he saw man-eating tribes. But there is zero, zilch, none, no archaeological proof of widespread cannibalism. It was merely political lies used to justify bad behavior and the conquest. In North America, the original European settlers used to describe the indigenous people's diets as particularly barbaric because eating meat was seen as uncivilized. Can you imagine us this day and age being called a monster just for eating elk? And even in Africa and Asia, empires, they would use words like beastly or animalistic or primitive to strip those people of their humanity and make colonization sound like charity. Calling someone a monster is one of the oldest tricks in the oppression playbook because it lets people sleep at night while justifying the bad behavior and saying, it's okay because it's easier to steal from a monster than it is to steal from a mother. Drop an emoji in the comments if you want to follow up on the monster myths in horror films or the monster language used in political campaigns. Have a great day. Bye.
I want y'all to understand something. White people have the entitlement of being able to follow us around in stores or going and keeping tabs on us before they go and tell the people in management or authority what they think they saw, they think they know what's happening, whatever the case is. The audacity that comes from people, the white people who do this, it comes from slavery. It comes from slavery. Same way we do things that came from slavery, like run when we laugh. There's a reason for that. It's in our DNA because our DNA was altered by the traumatic things we endured. Same way their DNA was altered. During the same time, baby, if it affected us, it affected them. Don't even mistake about it.
I want to get this correct. I don't think that anything we can do to white people would ever equal what they've done to us. I really don't. White people are born guilty and there is no redeemer.
Oh, I absolutely said that.
What do you mean by born guilty?
What I mean is this, that in America, white children are raised to be white supremacists, meaning to believe that they're superior. And as they're raised, they're integrated into a system of power that protects their alleged superiority. We as African people have never enslaved and captured European people, taken them from their land, raped their women, changed their culture, suppressed their ability to be educated, and do all of the wicked things that white America has done to African people. Therefore, there is no such thing in my mind as reverse racism, because reverse racism would imply that we had in some way even the scales, and certainly as African people, we have not done that.
Do you know any white Americans who resisted that education and went the other way?
Resisted what education?
The education to grow up superior.
It depends on what you say as went the other way.
Fought for equal rights, got involved in the civil rights movement, put their life on the lines as young men did in Mississippi and Alabama in the civil rights movement. You don't think whites did that?
I think that there are white people who have made ostensible moves towards addressing this system, but I think when we get down to the fundamental issues of power, meaning not the question of whether blacks and whites can go to restaurants together or whether Africans and Europeans can marry one another, not the ostensible questions, but when it comes down to the question of power, white people, European people in this country have not served us well.